Before I get started with this video, I have to give a huge shout out to Afro Elite that y'all know on Twitter. Now his username on Twitter, on YouTube, but on Twitter his username is J_Elite10. I'm gonna leave the link to his YouTube channel down in the description. He and I recently did a collab on my channel, a live stream a few days ago, talking about Save Mason, Tennessee, and I'm gonna definitely talk about that a little bit later on because that actually has a connection to this particular video. And make sure y'all hit that subscribe button for him because he's almost at 1,000 subscribers. Last time I checked, he was at 962. He might be over 1,000 by the time this video gets up there, to be quite honest. It shouldn't be no excuse why he isn't at 1,000 right now because he's doing a very, very good job being a intricate, relatively new voice to the new black media. And he has these Twitter spaces on lock. I think the Twitter space is one of the best things that could have happened for him in his content. Because I said in my stream when he was on with me that he's literally double dipping. He has his Twitter spaces over here. And then what he'll do is he can upload pieces of it over there, or he'll do a live stream on his channel where he breaks down certain key points. And I hope he does a live stream about this. I don't know if he'll do one before this video goes up or after. Either way, I hope that he does. But anyway, he had a Twitter space on March 22nd. As you can see, I'm actually recording this video on March 23rd. And the name of the space was called The Do's and Don'ts of Being on Code #B1 #AfroElite. Now, when I saw that he had made this space, it was on the 21st, but I said I wasn't going to be able to be a part of it because I had to work that evening and I wouldn't be able to contribute that much. However, when I got off, I was able to listen to the recordings because I know that his Twitter spaces tend to run pretty long. Like, you will rarely, if ever, come across a space that Jay does. And I'm saying Jay because that's the initials to his first name. You will rarely ever come across a space that he does that's less than 2 hours. Sometimes less than 3. His spaces can carry on and on and on. And it's very good content that you don't get bored of. Because like I told you, I was a part of one of his spaces he did before and my battery almost died and I was mad that I had to get off of it and charge my phone. And the irony of it all is when my phone was done charging to 100%, they were still going. Like, for real, for real. But anyway, he did a space called The Do's and Don'ts of Being on Code. And let me just tell y'all, I missed maybe the first 2 hours of this, but caught the last 2.5, like a little 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And when I tell you, Jay, you need to give yourself a pat on the back, a round of applause, a standing ovation with how you conducted this space and everybody who was in it, because this was the definition of being on code. And if I have a feeling that if people implement what he did with these off code Negroes, I think the black community could head in a very, very strong direction to the point where it's going to make people scared to even coon out or be a Sambo. Now, I'm going to give you 2 examples because I'm not going to go into every single thing. Because like I said, this is a 5.5 hour, almost 6 hour stream. Because this is the time right here, 5 hours, 43 minutes and 3 seconds. So it almost ran 6 hours. Because I think he started the space at 6 o'clock. That on the 22nd, and it ran into the early morning of the 23rd. That's how long that they went with the Twitter spaces. And it was just simply amazing to hear how he conducted that space, as well as the other people that were in there that was, talking about, being on code. So they were just talking about what it means to be on code, the definitions of being on code, what you should do to be on code and what you are doing when you're off code and how you can correct that. But it was 2 people in particular, and that's one of the major reasons why I'm making this video. It was 2 people in particular that came in with off code behavior, and when they were brought to the forefront about it, the way that it was handled was like the chef's kiss. So the first person that they dealt with was this person who identifies as a trans woman. There's a black person who identifies as trans, and their name was Giselle. And ironically, this person I didn't even know was following me, but they ended up getting blocked by probably everybody in this space after they got dealt with. So basically they were coming in and they were talking about like whatever it is. And then Afro and a couple of others had to kind of check them about some of the off-code stuff that they were saying. Now they have something in here called the Jumbotron, in which you can put tweets up, images on the screen while the Twitter space is going on so people can see if there's a reference point there about what is discussed. They pulled every kind of receipt they could on this Giselle person to display the off-code behavior in which they were talking about. And I think this person had more than one account. I think they had 2 accounts. We blocked both of them. Like, we made sure to do that. And shout out to Nino Black, because Nino literally, when him and Afro like literally combine forces and form up like Voltron, they become like an unstoppable force. And I think Twitter has it out for Nino, because right before this Twitter space actually occurred, his Twitter account ended up getting suspended. And I don't know what it is. He's gone through so many Twitter accounts. It's like they have him stored somewhere in their server and he was saying how whenever his growth gets very high up, it seems like they have a target and they just found a way to take him off of their platform. I don't know. And it didn't dawn on me to say that, wow, Jay is actually about to have a Twitter space. Nino is usually always in his Twitter spaces. How is he going to get on there? Because he needs a Twitter account in order to access it. And lo and behold, when I was able to get on and go into the sector of just being a listener, whose name did I see there? Nino. So I said, this guy done found a way to create another Twitter account to get into this space. I said, that's determination, but his voice is needed, because when he speaks, he comes from, like, his voice is very dominant, and you know that it's him that is there. And he's like going to make sure, he's going to check people. And one thing that Nino has done is that he has broken down, like, he said it's 3 different sectors. I don't know how he describes it, but it's like 3 sectors or 3 points, you know, when someone is displaying off-code behavior, or 3 types of people. And those in the academy is one of those points. And I think people who date interracially is another one. And I forget the last one, but he's been right pretty much all along. But when it came to this Giselle person who was trans, person who's born a man or born a male, but now lives as a woman, they were displaying so much off-code behavior and they were trying to explain themselves and everything like that. Nino asked Giselle one simple question. Do you consider yourself B1? Or do you put your race before your sexuality? And I swear, when it came to Giselle answering this question, it was like pulling teeth. They could not say yes. They could not even say no. It was even people in the space that gave Giselle the respect of calling this person by the pronoun, quote unquote, that they would probably be preferred to be, and that was she, when clearly we know that that was a he. But they could not bring themselves to say B1, or if they finally said it, it did not sound genuine. And you know what? I take that back. I don't even think they said it, because the first time they said it, they inserted a but there. And you know what I say about a but? A but usually, when a but happens, it usually means BS is about to follow behind it. And that's exactly what happened. And then, like, it just spiraled out of control from there. That's what we've been saying about when it comes to a lot of black people in the academy who cannot bring themselves to say that they're black first. They always have to insert their sexuality in there somewhere, and usually it comes before the blackness. And we know why that is, because they probably feel that they get more of a benefit from their sexuality or how they identify, rather than saying that they're black, or rather than saying B1, because they don't feel there's a benefit of saying that or identifying with that first and foremost. But let's keep it all the way 100. You may not see it that way, but society definitely does. And I feel like I don't have to give any examples, because I've talked about this plenty of times on my channel. Ed Buck is a perfect example of that. Here you have this white guy who was often black men in the academy. And if it wasn't for that last black man who managed to survive him or escape him, Ed Buck would probably still be out here doing what he does. Then you had that black man who's in the Academy of Virginia who got attacked, and they tried to, deem it as a hate crime, but it wasn't deemed a hate crime because of his sexuality. It was deemed they try to deem it a hate crime because of his race and he was a black man. So that's what we keep trying to convey to black people in the academy who just don't seem to get it or it doesn't click. And that Giselle person was one of those people. Like, they just could not bring themselves to say black first at all. Now, like I said, I'm gonna leave the link to the recording. You can go back and listen to it yourself. I hope that you do. Even I know it's 5 hours and 43 seconds long, but if you have to listen to it in pieces, go ahead and do it, because it is a very good, insightful video, and you'll hear everything that I'm talking about right now in there. This is just the summary, because if I was to talk about every little thing, I would be on here for hours. Now, the other person who came in and they was off code was someone by the name of NATO. Now, this person, you can tell that they were scared to say B1. They were scared to say that they were black first. Like, you can listen to their tone and just tell that they was a little scared Negro. You can tell they grew up in an environment that there probably wasn't a lot of black people around. He reminds me of a sheltered black man. And there's a lot of people that were sheltered growing up. And, you know, to an extent, there's nothing wrong with being sheltered. But at the same time, when the reality hits you and the world gets at you, you have to know what time it is. You got to know how to deal with that, because not everyone's going to take pity on you. But he just gave me scared Negro vibes. But what I thought was interesting when it came to the consequences is when Afro Elite, when Jay issued out the punishments or the consequences, and when 8 people got off cold like that, Giselle and that NATO, it's almost like they were put on trial. Like, they didn't allow them to talk after a while. They were only able to talk whenever they were allowed to talk. And after they were done talking, and they had to pretty much go on mute, and they couldn't talk again until everyone else got their point across with them. Now, the consequence that came was they had to pay a fine. And them fines was crazy. They weren't like crazy, like out, like ridiculous, but it was a fine. Basically paying money to a cause. What cause, you may ask? The Save Mason, Tennessee cause. That same GoFundMe that I posted in my live stream that I did with Jay the other day, that was that one. And the thing is, we know that with their off-code behavior going into this, that they were going to be off-code again and not contribute to that cause. So they were off-code times 2. And that's really a shame, because that cause is supposed to be helping black people in a very interesting, diabolical situation, thanks to Jason Mumpower down there. But many of them probably don't even know what it is. Some of them came into that space and didn't even know what B1 was. They just came in there because they just saw something and just decided to get in it. Like I told you, everything that I'm talking about is in this space, this recording. And I'm glad that Jay records it. He says he records it because he said he needs the receipts just in case someone tries to come back later and refute and rebut what was being talked about in these spaces, which is why some of these spaces, they don't record them, because they don't want a paper trail or an audio a digital trail of what was being said. And then what he'll do is he'll translate it back over to his YouTube channel. That way you can see it, you know, again. That's basically for people who don't have Twitter accounts, so you can get an idea of what was, you know, being said and what, you know, what was heard. But like I said, this was a very good space that he had. I'm very glad that he did it. This is probably one of my favorite ones that he had, and he's done quite a few so far. If you go to and subscribe to his channel, you can listen to some of the playbacks of the Twitter spaces that he has done. Again, I did contribute my voice a little bit for like a good minute or two at the tail end of this, but I would suggest do not skip ahead just to hear me talk. Listen to the entire space. If you have the time, like set aside sometimes, if you're driving somewhere, if you're in the shower, you got some downtime, listen to this, because it was very, very good. And it's basically stating how we should be when we're on code, and how to deal with these off-code Negroes. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you are new. Make sure you go ahead and hit that bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live.